Welcome to the Hecht Effect with Certified Financial Planner Professional Nancy Hecht.
Nancy, I'm so glad to have you on today for another edition of the Hecht Effect. It's really important, I think, right now that, during this crisis that we're dealing with, this pandemic that we're dealing with, that we reach out to people and talk to them about their investments. Let's start with early investors, people that are just now getting into investing. They're not nearing retirement. They're not dealing with anything like having to pull money right now because they're about to, reach the retirement age or anything like that. We're talking about people that have been investing, from anywhere from 1 to maybe 10 to 15 years, correct?
Yes. Okay. So the one thing I always tell new investors is that there's 2 things you have to work on first. From your first job, you need to start participating in your payroll deducted retirement plan to whatever level you can. And you have to, at the same time, build up cash reserves. If you can only do one over the other, then you build up cash reserves. At times like now, you realize how important having cash on hand is.
That makes sense. All right. So let's say I've built up my cash reserves and I've done a pretty good job. By the way, when you say cash reserves, what is a good cash reserve? I know you've talked about this before on prior podcasts, but let's refresh people what a good cash reserve is.
I like to look at having at least 6 months of income in either a checking or savings or money market account. And that's an amount of money that you look at as your toe of the sock money. This is emergency only money. This is not buying a new car or a vacation money.
Right.
So
and that is expenses or what is that in
I like
total?
To look at income versus expenses because income is the bigger dollar amount.
Got it. Okay. So let's say I've done that. I've done my job and I'm coming into a crisis like this. How should I look at my investments? What should I be doing? Should I be panicking? Should I be pulling my money? I know that's a loaded question, but what's the best way to approach a situation like this?
Now, I actually had this conversation with my neighbor who's in her mid-30s. So it's the perfect demographic for this question. Somebody who has a lot of time on their side, which is one gift that older investors don't have.
Right.
And because you have the time on the side, as they're adding investments to their payroll deducted plan every single month, they're being able to buy more and more shares every time that money hits when the markets are negative.
Right.
So when you're buying, when your deposits are hitting, you're hoping that the markets are negative so you can get more and more shares. The more shares you have will equal the more income that's paid to you when you eventually do retire.
So that makes sense. So right now, during this crisis that we're dealing with, it's best to leave your money alone, maybe even put some more in there if you've had an opportunity, correct?
Right. If you're a young investor and you have a lot of time on your side, you should be jumping for joy because something like this does not happen that frequently. So it's an opportunity to buy quality investments on sale and then hold them for the long term.
So don't look at my portfolio every day. Just kind of let it ride.
No.
Let it do its job.
Even in good markets, you shouldn't be looking at your portfolio every day.
Some of us are weird like that.
That's something we need to retrain people to. Look at your statements once a month, once a quarter. That's enough.
That makes sense. So in the grand scheme of things, and when we're talking about early investors, so is there like an emergency plan I could put together or is it just to do what you just said? Look at those 2 things, which is to make sure my cash reserves are good. And then in a time of crisis, just make sure I let it ride.
That's it. That's really it. Because the young investor has time on their side, make it work to your benefit.
That's great. Is there any other advice you would give to someone that's an early investor, a new investor? Should I be looking at more than just my 401k? Is there any other opportunities out there for us?
Well, investing is any money that you can have working for you for a period of 18 to 24 months or longer. So if there's extra dollars that you can save, you've got your cash reserves in place, you're doing the max that you can in your payroll deducted plan. And then you might want to look at something like a Roth or just a general investment account that has a beneficiary attached to it.
Very cool. You talk about beneficiaries a lot. Now, how
Yeah.
important is that right now when we're in this crisis right now and my health may decline? Isn't it important to be looking at those things?
Well, there's two issues in that question. And this really doesn't matter what your age is,
Right.
because this virus does not discriminate.
That's right.
So you always need to have a beneficiary attached to all of your accounts. Checking, savings, money market, you can add the designation in trust for or transfer on death. If it's a joint investment account, then you can have transfer on death or payable on death. Life insurance, retirement accounts all have beneficiaries.
Very cool.
But another thing you have to be concerned about right now is making sure that you have a Florida medical surrogate form done properly. That's the form that says, feed me, don't feed me, keep me on machines, don't keep me on machines. You have to designate somebody to be your guardian of your body.
Right.
And then there's somebody that you would want to be guardian of your assets. That would be through durable powers of attorney. That allows somebody to work on your behalf if you can't speak for yourself. And the person who's a guardian of the body versus the guardian of the finances does not necessarily have to be the same. So I'm not saying make sure that you have, a trust or an advanced estate planning in place, but right now in a crisis like this, how you want your health taken care of and who gets to speak on your behalf are two things that are really important to have in place.
That makes a lot of sense. So here's what we're going to do. Next up, we're going to do another video cast soon, and we're going to talk to people who are probably approaching retirement and how they should be looking at times like this during a crisis. Thanks for your time today, Nancy.
Thank you.
If you have questions, contact Nancy Hecht at nancy@financialgroup.com. Thanks for listening to The Hecht Effect with Certified Financial Planner Professional Nancy Hecht.